Chapter 22. 1902 hours, April 16th, 2539. Military calendar. MEAD system. Planet boundary. Low equatorial orbit. Covenant battlecruiser Purity of Spirit. Resistance within the Covenant battlecruiser had increased exponentially since the sudden and unexpected takeoff several minutes ago. Arthur and what remained of Teal Team had to double back and find alternate routes 3 times as their ingress points continued to be densely populated by hunter pairs, elites, and hastily assembled crew-served weapons. Yet another volley of green and blue bolts of plasma streaked mere centimeters from Arthur's visor. He recoiled at the sudden burst of heat as an alarm chimed in his HUD. The suit's internal system struggling to bleed off the excess and protect its user. They were pinned on 2 of the 3 sides of a massive maintenance bay on the starboard side of the vessel. They had chosen this particular location because, according to Teal 3, it had a series of fiber optic cable tubes running parallel to the ship's engineering deck. They could traverse these tubes quickly and gain access to the engineering deck beyond. 30 meters away, a hell jumper was tying a tourniquet around the upper thigh of his fire team member. Flash cauterized arterial blood soaking the dressing instantly. Arthur was running out of options as he lost another trooper. Of the 3 4-man teams he started with, a total of 5 remained. They had lost radio contact with the team ordered to guard the Hornets several minutes ago, and he had no choice but to consider them lost. On their perilous journey through the Covenant battlecruiser, 3 more hell jumpers succumbed to their injuries. He popped out of cover behind a half-assembled ghost attack craft to gun down a pair of jackals moving into position to finish off the beleaguered Marines. Arthur used the moment to survey the maintenance bay and assess their options. Across the room, he spied a single indigo-hued door and ducked back behind the ghost. The Spartan opened squadcom to address the team. On my command, Teal 4 will provide cover fire on those elites 1 level above. He huffed a breath. A green acknowledgement light winked on his HUD. Teal 3, you're with me. Close cover while I escort the casualty to the exfil. Another light flashed in acknowledgement. Marines, hold tight and get ready to move on my mark. We're heading for this door. His onboard computer tagged the door with a waypoint 27 meters away, tucked behind a stack of spare parts and tanks of carrier gas for the inert gun carriages beyond. On my mark. Arthur pulled his remaining M9 fragmentation grenade and set it on the floor before him. He thumbed the primer of a captured plasma grenade next, and rocking back, he sent the plasma grenade sailing over a decommissioned Wraith tank. Next, he primed the frag grenade, threw it above the plasma grenade on the platforms above, and shouted, "Go! Go! Go!" At once, a cacophony of sound filled the maintenance bay as grenades exploded. Cal fired all 4 rounds of her, 14.5 by 114 millimeter armor-piercing rounds before switching to her secondary weapon, and the remaining Spartans sprinted toward the Marines' position. It was Sheila's turn this time. She skidded to a halt, primed her own frag grenade, and sent it sailing over a file of grunts. Their excited squeals echoed as they witnessed the device that would propel them toward their great journey. It exploded, shrapnel tearing through the methane tanks of the squat bipedal creatures. Secondary explosions rang out just meters in front of the Marines. "Here, sir," one Marine said, and handed over the stabilized casualty onto his shoulder. The young ODST had angry carbon scoring on his thigh armor. A melted crack indicated that a round had passed nearly through. His head was lolling back and forth, unconscious from blood loss. Arthur accepted the casualty while Sheila continued to pour fire at a team of grunts and elite warriors. An ambitious elite clad in cobalt armor stepped out from cover, shouted something unintelligible to his ears, and staggered back as 8-gauge Magnum buckshot caved in his chest. "Casualty secure, we're moving," Arthur said coolly as he shouldered the Marine. He raised the assault rifle with one arm and moved to the exit. Cal was providing effective fire at the entrenched Covenant across the bay, as Sheila, Arthur, and the remaining ODSTs reached their objective. The team leader gave Cal the signal and began the harrowing sprint to the doorway beyond. She sprinted, stutter-stepped to avoid a plasma round, and dove into a forward roll before springing back into a sprint. Arthur set down the casualty just beyond the threshold of the door and took a role in covering her escape to the corridor behind him. He traversed his assault rifle right to left, and Sheila stood next to him, doing the same from the opposite direction. The ammunition readout on his rifle dwindled precipitously, choosing to engage with fully automatic fire. The hammer fell silent on the last round in the magazine when it was too late to react to what he saw next. "Cal!" Arthur watched in horror as he reloaded another magazine into the rifle. A monstrous creature, standing nearly 3 meters tall in the vaulted workshop, fired a fuel rod gun right at Teal 4. It was a hunter, the Covenant's most fearsome infantry asset. These creatures were comprised of a colony of eel-like creatures that work as a collective intelligence, and concealed in a near-impenetrable suit of armor. They sported massive shields affixed to their forearm with an integrated cannons on the other. Before the Spartan could react, the fuel rod closed the distance and struck. She was between strides and took the brunt of the blast between her legs and sent careening through the air. She tumbled, end over end, in a ball of green heat before crumpling on the deck. "Cover fire!" Sheila demanded and rushed to the fallen soldier's aid. Immediately, Arthur's HUD rang out in alarm just as it did when Sheila was struck not a few minutes ago. Cal's biosigns were erratic and fading fast. The 5 ODSTs and Arthur let loose another fusillade of bullets directed at the hunter, while Sheila scooped up their teammate and carted her off to safety in her arms. The hunter ducked behind the massive metal shield and staggered back under the combined fire. A moment later, Sheila leapt through the doorway and it shut with a gentle whoosh. Such a quiet, simple gesture contrasted to the carnage around it. "I've got her, ma'am," a gruff voice said from behind Arthur. It was one of the Marines. "No," she said sharply. Yes, it was Arthur now. He understood why she was so quick to react. And he also understood she was about to rip into the Marine for the wrong reason. She was reacting emotionally, and he needed her focused. "Teal 3, I need you on that door. Make sure those hostiles can't pursue us." An amber light flashed twice in quick succession now on his VISR. A clear indication of her frustration. He opened up a private channel. "Look at her vitals, Sheila. She's in shock, but she'll be fine. I need you on that door." The security specialist stood in obstinance for a moment before flashing a single green dot to Arthur. She turned and began working to secure the door. "Corporal, how's she looking?" The gruff ODST was on a knee and hunched over Cal 141's body. Helmet off. She was coming around now. "Sir, she's in shock." Gave her a combat stim to shake off the fog and a smoother to counteract the aftershock. She should be good to go in a minute or two. The dazed Spartan flexed a hand and bent a knee up from the deck before speaking. She leaned forward, tentatively at first, to test her mobility, then stood. "I'm good, sir. Just clipped me back there." Her vital signs began stabilizing as the drugs took effect. The biomonitor display fed him telemetry from her Mjolnir to report third-degree burns from her knees down, and a mild concussion from the shockwave and landing. By Spartan standards, all things considered, she got off easy. Hunters were no joke, even for Spartans in Mjolnir armor. Satisfied his teammate was still combat-ready and good to go, he turned to Sheila. Realizing now how quiet it had become, he queried their status en route. "Sheila," Arthur said as he scanned the hallway for threats. It was too quiet here. "How far are we from the engineering deck?" The Spartan pulled up the schematics downloaded to her suit via a computer terminal when they touched down. A path was uploaded to her HUD and shared to the team. "Looks like we're almost there. Across this room, down a level through another chamber, and arrive at the parallel junction to the engineering deck." "Let's move then," the team leader said and began walking. Arthur started to usher his remaining commandos down the passage, and his gaze stopped on Sheila as she jogged past him. He noticed a slight gait in her step. Maybe her injuries were more severe than his fellow Spartans let on. As team leader, Arthur had unfettered access to his cohort's biosystems. His onboard computer read his mind and pulled up several diagnostic readouts from Teal 3's Mjolnir armor, just as he did for Cal moments earlier. He read the display on the move, ducking under a pipe and rounding a corner to keep up. The display read the same as what Cal had told him back where she had sustained her injuries. He closed the medical readouts on his HUD and refocused on the task at hand. They were nearing the engineering deck, and it was almost time to dump their nuke. Teal Force continued down yet another hallway, only illuminated by the helmet lamps of the Spartans on point. Sheila raised a gauntleted fist indicating for the column to halt. Through a strained voice, she grunted, "We're here. Provide security when we get in, and I'll prep the nuke." "Negative." Arthur remanded the command. "Wait one sec," he said, and ordered the Marines to check the door for signs of tampering or booby traps. A necessary precaution given the circumstances, but the order had an ulterior motive. Arthur opened Team Comm, an encrypted line of sight channel dedicated exclusively for his Spartans. "Sheila, I know you're too stubborn to say it, so I will. Your combat effectiveness is tanking, and we can't carry another casualty and complete the mission." The Marines, unaware of the conversation transpiring next to them, continued to scan the door while others provided security down the dimly lit passages to their flank. "I'm good, team leader." Sheila clipped back tersely. Her frustration only outwardly manifested in a shift of weight on her legs. "No, you're not." It was Cal's turn to speak up. dipping her helmet down slightly. She was highlighting the blood-stained biofoam creasing from the titanium nanocomposite bodysuit situated before her thicker armor plating. Sheila acknowledged the wound and stood down. "Let's get back to it then," said Arthur. He engaged the Marines on task to defuse the situation. "How are we looking, Sergeant?" A burly Marine clad in carbon-scored armor looked up from a wrist-mounted datapad. "Sir, looks clean. Ready to proceed on your order." He laid out the next plan of the raid before giving the green light. Sheila trailing support with the Fury. "Cal, Sergeant, you're with me up front. As soon as we enter engineering, establish a perimeter while Teal 3 stashes the nuke." A chorus of affirmation rang in the bleak junction, and Arthur signaled the Marine to proceed. One by one, the group poured through the doorway. Arthur on the left, Cal on the right. Sheila hung in the rear and slowly backpedaled, following to cover their rear. With the pair of Spartans on point, the group entered the next junction of the massive ship. Before Sheila could make her way through, however, the final bulkhead unexpectedly snapped shut, cutting her off from the team. Arthur spun and banged on the door. Teal 3. Instead of a friendly voice filling his earpiece, it was a low growl, followed by various hisses and clacks. He turned to see several elite warriors clad in deep blue armor with one, presumably their leader, in front donning a crimson combat harness. The hilt in its hand came to life with a dazzling blue form in the shape of a two-pronged sword, plasma emanating from either side of the hilt. The blue-white light filled the dark chamber between the two groups. It was a trap. Fire. One of the Marines rang out as all hell broke loose once more. Each side exchanged fire with the other, red tracer rounds mixing with streaks of plasma bolts. Two of the ODSTs cried out and flew backward as they were hit with the initial volley of fire. Before Arthur could react, the lead elite with the crimson armor charged. He didn't have time to do anything but meet the alien head-on. The Spartan raised his MA-5B in the air to catch the blade on a vicious downward strike. The blow glanced off an awkward angle, then tore through the barrel and lower receiver before finding purchase on Arthur's titanium chest piece. A glowing, white-hot gash seared through his chest. He cried out with blinding pain, blinked it away, and staggered back. An angry, jagged section of his Mjolnir had been cut several centimeters deep to show boiling hydrostatic gel bubbling to the surface. The crimson-clad warrior stepped into the blow, clearly a highly trained warrior, and immediately threw his sword arm laterally and to the rear to catch the Spartan off guard for the killing blow to his neck. He ducked, heat pin-pricking his scalp as the dual-pronged energy sword nearly took off his helmet for him. The alien didn't afford a moment of respite, and raised its muscular arm in the air to try and deal another finishing strike. Arthur saw an opportunity and capitalized it. With two closed, gauntleted fists, he struck fast and efficient. Rabbit punches to the thoracic cage of the Saurian warrior caused it to stagger back in either astonishment or surprise, perhaps a mix of both. The ODST's fire had dwindled to a few sporadic bursts as two more elites charged the unarmed Spartan. He took the brief moment between bouts to pull the M90 from his rear magnetic mount and got to work. One pull of the trigger sent the first reeling back with a crater of buckshot carving through its stomach. He pumped the shotgun and prepared to fire before Cal stitched a burst of automatic fire up its right side. He spared a glance to his right to see his teammate fighting for her life, same as him. Luckily, the hunter-killer team wasn't large. No more than 8 or so in total. It was hard to tell with how fast everything moved. Looking back toward his aggressors, he saw the crimson-clad elite once more, walking slowly in a circle as if he were meditating on his next move. Fine by me, Arthur thought, raising his weapon and pulled the trigger. It was as if the elite was waiting for that exact moment and launched itself into a side spin to find cover behind an unknown piece of machinery. Arthur rounded the corner to dispatch the last of the interdiction team to find nothing. Cal, perimeter sweep. We can't let it get away, he said, huffing from exertion. The pair moved in tandem through the dark atrium to find nothing but inert machinery and shadows. Sound off, Marines, he called through the darkness. Finding the red-tinged elite was their priority right now, and he didn't have time to check on them. Arthur, Cal said solemnly. They're gone. He huffed in anger, then tried to raise Sheila on comms. Nothing. We've got to get to the engineering deck. That's where she'll be heading. If she can't, then it's up to us to find a way to overload the fusion reactor and find a ride out of here. A lone acknowledgement flashed amber in his VSR twice. Her nonverbal query of, "Are you okay?" He pulled out a canister of biofoam from a belt pouch and inserted the tip of the nozzle into the wound. A rush of cool liquid filled the cavity to stabilize the round. He shuddered, and the searing pain subsided to a dull ache. I'm good. Let's just get the hell out of here. The pair made their way through another set of doors into another vast atrium. Just as derelict as the first, something was wrong. He could feel it. Without warning, the doors they just entered slammed shut, and laughter permeated the empty chamber. A whoosh of decompression slammed into him as violent gusts of wind burst through the seams parting in the ship's superstructure. At once, Arthur and Cal began ragdolling end over end, only slowed by impacting the myriad of pipes, storage tanks, and the like strung out around the area and into the dark maw of space. A small grayscale image appeared before Usei Taham's view screen. It was a hull-mounted ship security camera situated in a seam of the ship's interior. One of his lieutenants discovered the team of human infiltrators just moments ago, wandering the antechambers beyond his ambush site. Now that Usei and his team had control of the bridge and were attaining geosynchronous orbit, he had his officers focus on locking down the decks and boxing the demons into a corner. He had failed to stop them, to his dismay, and radioed for his loyal security team on the bridge to jettison the ship's hull. "On my command," he began. Usei held a breath and watched as the camera cycled once more. A team of downtrodden Nisham shuffled down a service tunnel into nothingness, only to appear again on the next screen. He waited until the team was fully into the next section of the Purity. "Detach exterior hull D-22 now," Taham barked. The security officer manning the ops station conducted a series of hand gestures to initiate the command. They felt a low din of metal on metal as the modular section of hull broke off and scraped against the cruiser. "Exterior hull D-22 detached and away, Blade Master," his officer reported. The team of Sanghili shifted their gaze to the main display port above the bridge chamber as the exterior security camera confirmed the action. A silent ballet of flotsam drifted through space in their wake. An innumerable number of debris floated through the dark, so it was impossible to confirm the ejection of the demons. Prepare the rest of the ship security forces to comb the area, and sent a Megalek Golo pair to the engineering deck. Now is not the time for apathy, he thought. The battle was not yet won, and from previous engagements he recognized humanity for what it truly was, a race of primitive apes cowering before the light of the Covenant. They were aware of their imminent annihilation, and even so they fought like animals backed into a corner. These demons were cunning, deceptive, and lacked honor. He had no doubt the humans, like their derogatory nickname implied, would somehow latch themselves back to the purity of spirit like the intestinal parasites they were. Shipmaster incoming transmission from Fleetmaster Vadami. A superimposed image of a Sanghili warrior appeared in the central chamber and illuminated an imposing figure above their heads. It was Fleetmaster Thel Vadami, adorned in the combat harness befitting his rank. An ornate headpiece of golden armor shone in the light of the projectors, Vadami's chest and mandibles sprayed with the deep red hue of a recent kill. He believed in honor, and as such would often lead his troops directly into the fray. His mighty chest continued to heave up and down as he spoke. "I heard the report that human demons had boarded my ship, Usei Taham, and that you sent a strike team to deal with them." An accusatory tone underlined his voice, growling coarsely as he spoke, still high on the exhilarating drug of war. Thel had hoped he chose wisely in promoting the young Sanghili to security chief. The tone implied a lack of confidence in both the decision and Taham's abilities as a leader. Now his flagship Unrelenting Enteliki lay at the heart of the human counteroffensive on the ground, with only a skeleton crew of elite officers and support staff to protect his jewel. Even with the squadrons of Banshee and Seraph fighters, it could be a toss-up which way the tide would turn, though the Fleet Master would never admit it. The humans were putting up a rare challenge. "Yes, Fleet Master," Usei bowed his head. With the majority of the ship's complement of warriors on the battlefield, all that remained were a handful of security teams. "I have heard of the martial prowess of these demons, and did not want to risk the Purity's capture or worse. And what of the demons now? I took the ship into orbit as soon as I deduced their goal, Fleet Master. They did not head to the bridge but toward the engineering deck. They intended to plant a bomb." The Fleet Master scowled in disgust at the thought of his own vessels being defiled. He squinted and clacked his lower mandibles to proceed. "We cornered them to a derelict and damaged section of the ship and jettisoned the hull section. They have been dealt with at no great loss to the Purity." "Very good," he said as an explosion erupted in the background. A platoon of wraiths sped into view, halted, and sent another volley of plasma mortars toward an entrenched position beyond. "Now that they have been dealt with, I have additional information." "Of course, Fleet Master. I was informed several units ago that our bladder ship has been targeted. Typical humans and their cowardice. Our corvette managed to destroy the saboteurs before they could escape." Usei snarled audibly as he knew the implications of the Fleetmaster's statement. Without the much-needed fuel typically obtained from gas giants, the fleet could only stretch themselves so far. Any Sangheili in the Covenant Navy knew their fleet was completely reliant on it. The fuel for their reactors, their weapons, and even the life-giving methane the Ungoi were reliant on came from the captured particles obtained by their support vessels. We have enough plasma in reserve to cleanse the planet, but we must disengage our ground forces first. While I finish things here, you must join the rest of the fleet in orbit. Our remaining ships are currently engaged with the human fleet. As you command, Fleetmaster. We'll begin moving at once, Taham said. The main display flashed off, and silence fell upon the deck. He began to relay orders to his impromptu bridge crew and started a shipwide message explaining their new situation. Most of the maintenance crew were not even aware there were humans aboard, as they furiously sought to make repairs. Only the ship's security teams were notified and given orders, now preparing to jockey into position with the rest of the Covenant fleet. Taham shifted casually in his seat. One last order of business remained before they conducted their slipspace maneuver. What have the security teams discovered? He spoke. Blademaster. All interior hatches were secured with no movement on sensors. Security teams report all clear. Hull section successfully detached and moving into a degrading orbit above the human city. Very well, he replied coolly. Let us conduct our jump toward the rest of the fleet. Onward, brothers. Let us cleanse the scourge of humanity from the stars.